Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to the final webinar of 15.2 launch week, What's New for HTML5 and Mobile, presented by Web Program Manager Mehul and DevExpress Technical Evangelist Don Wibier. Today's webinar will review the newest products and features shipping inside DevExtreme 15.2. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Mehul and Don.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Hey, good morning, Don. How are you?
I'm excited, man, for all this new stuff.
That's great because we have a lot to show. So thank you, everyone, for joining. And this is what's new in DevExtreme version 15.2. So what we've got in store for you today is a ton of things. I, in fact, have so much to show that Don's going to help us out and show us a lot of the integrations and other cool things that we have. I'll start off by showing off what's happened in most of the widget that we have, like the pivot grid, the data grid, scheduler, and tree view upgrades that we've done in there. And then I'll talk about a lot of the major work that's gone into this release for performance and how this is going to be a tremendous benefit for you. And then, Don, what do you have in store for us?
I'm going to show you a new widget which will make creating forums really cool. I'm going to talk about data visualization. We have some really nice Visual Studio 2015 support, and we have a new theme. And the last thing I'm going to show is integration with parse.com cloud platform.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So before we dive into it, everything I'm going to show today is available either locally. So when you install the DevExpress installation, you get this excellent demo center, and these are all of our different demos. So we've got these major demos like DevAV, Sales Dashboard, and so forth, and you can even see them on the different platforms. For example, Sales Dashboard is actually targeted at multiple platforms, whereas in DevAV is really targeted at major desktop browsers. But you can see all of these demos with the source code. You can open them in Visual Studio or Sublime, whatever you prefer. And all the source code is included as well. So as I mentioned, if you open up the sources folder, it's installed directly in your local folder. So I'll be using a combination of this and our online demos, which you can find at js.devexpress.com. Now the good news is what I'm showing today is available. So if you have DevExpress, if you don't have it, grab the trial. But the latest version for 15.2 is out, but don't do it right now. Let's do it after the webinar. All right. With that, let's talk about the first major widget, and that is the pivot grid. In this release, we've added some big features. Now, we released this control a couple of releases ago, and as you can imagine, it was one of the big controls that we're really proud of. It allows a really great way to display your summaries and so forth. And in this release, we've added a feature called Export to Microsoft Excel. Now, you had really no good way to export any of the data before. Well, now, with a simple way to enable, you can say export enable to true, and you can even specify a file name, but this will now give you a nice UI. So your end user will see, and when they click on it, they'll get the file name that you intended, and they'll have the extension for Excel as well. And if they have Excel installed, they can simply open the file, and it'll be right there in Excel. And it will display for them whatever you have displayed. So if I have this expanded or if I have 2015 expanded, they will automatically get that view that they are looking at directly in Microsoft Excel. All right, and then they can take this further, of course, and modify it as they wish. Now the next feature I want to discuss is virtual scrolling. Virtual scrolling is great because when it's enabled, it divides all the loaded data across multiple pages and draws only those that are visible. Now, this tremendously improves performance when working with extremely large data sets. So, let's say you've got a pivot grid with more than 5,000 cells, and the maximum number of loaded cells without virtual scrolling could be 25,000. So, to really see this in effect, when I virtually scroll this horizontally, and when I scroll this horizontally, this pivot grid, you'll see it reaches a point where it loads. Now, it may be a little quick, and you may not see it right away, so I'll do it kind of quickly here, where I'll drag it all the way to the right, and you'll see there's a slight pause. So what's happened there is I have actually loaded, and we've got 4,000 cells in this demo, And so what I'm doing is I'm only getting the rendered view. I actually have all of the data here on the client side, but I'm not actually rendering it because I don't need to. I'm only displaying those cells that need to be rendered. And therefore, it keeps the user interface fast and light. So whether I scroll backwards, forwards, you can see I've got a very nice, light, fast interface. And then if I don't need to, let's say I collapse all of those columns, I don't need to scroll at all, and therefore it's going to simply keep the necessary view. And then of course when I expand, you can see it expands just as fast. And again, it's very easy to enable. Just set scrolling mode to virtual. All right, the next feature I want to discuss is drill downs. Now this is going to help improve usability and facilitate data analysis, which is great for your power users. So let's say you've got some power users that would like to figure out, hey, what cells went into calculating this value here for 2014 for Asia? Well, they can simply click on it, and they will now get a modal pop-up dialog that has a grid in it that is paged, and it gives them exactly the cells that were used to calculate that summary. And now they are able to drill down. Now, of course, they can still go ahead and expand these rows and then figure out, for example, specifically what all those cells were. But this approach to simply use the drill down lets them see quickly, because they might just want to say, well, I just want to know, was Tokyo as part of that calculation? And they can quickly see, yes, it was. All right, so it's a very helpful feature for those power users that are constantly using the pivot grid. All right, next I want to discuss is running totals. Now, running totals is a nice usability feature that lets your end users see a running total, meaning that a total that increases. So, for example, let's say we've got this Q1 total here. Well, for Q2, we also have a different total that is only for the quarter, but the running total will calculate Q1 plus Q2. Same thing for Q3. It's a running total of the previous amounts. All right, that is a very nice feature, but we've gone a little bit further and given you this capability to do summary level calculations. And so these, essentially, if you've worked with pivot tables, you'll know that it's often more important to understand how a summary value correlates with the other cells than it is to know the summary value itself. So we've given you different summary display modes. That includes everything from absolute variation, percent variation. Well, let's just take a look at this in our demo here. So let's say instead of running total, I want to change this to a different summary mode. So instead here, let's I'll comment out format, because I'm going to use actually a different type, and I'll call this summary display mode, and let's change it to something like percent of row total. All right, and probably I want to call this percent total instead of running total. And now, when I apply this, you'll see I've automatically got this updated, and it calculated that for me. Now I can go further, and I can say, give me percent of the row grand total or the column grand total. In all, we give you several predefined modes. However, you can also implement your own summary calculation algorithm. So it's very customizable, but it gives you a powerful way to customize the pivot grid even further beyond just us providing you these excellent summaries. Now, one other feature that I think your end users are really going to love with this pivot grid is now the capability to store state. And which basically means that when you first load the grid, you get a default view. But me, as an individual user, I may go in here into this pivot grid view, and I may say, I'm going to expand 2014, I'm going to expand Europe, and I'm going to take a look at Q3. Well, the next time I come back, I want to reload this view. So I don't, every time I log in, I want to make sure this is the view I get. Well, now it stays storing enabled. Whenever I refresh this view, I get that. So whether I have, let's say, filtered some items, so instead, let's say here, I select only Europe and Africa here. Well, you can see I filtered that out, and when I refresh this, it will store that. So whatever I've filtered, sorted, expanded, or collapsed will be kept for us. And it's a very nice end user that your end users will just be delighted by. All right. With that, let's move on to the data grid. Now, we've added a very nice feature in the data grid, and it's the capability to create and edit form. Now, in previous releases, there just wasn't even a way to do it. So, for example, the only way we provide editing in previous releases was simply row editing. So, if you wanted to come in here and edit something, your only option was to use a row. Well, in this release, I'm happy to say, not only have we provided a way to create a form editing capability, where you get a form and your editors are presented in a different layout and a layout of your choosing, we've done this by making a very new customizable widget, and that's the form widget, which Don is going to dive into more a little bit later. But in essence, this widget is integrated with the grid and allows you to really create a powerful form. So you can actually design a custom form, and it does some great things like binding to objects and so forth. But beyond that, you can do things like validation, custom theming, and all sorts of great things. So I'm happy to see now, not only have you provided form editing, where you can do custom binding and so forth, but it does it beautifully as well. And there's some other real nice features that Don's going to talk about as well. All right. Next, we've added a new capability for filtering. And so, for example, in the past, you've seen like there's been these excellent ways to filter. Obviously, a header filter. We've got this filter bar, and you've got these operators in here like contains, does not contain, starts with, ends with. Well, we've added a new operator called between. And as you can imagine, between takes two values, a start value and an end value. So, for example, I can come here and say, give me everything that starts with 3,000 and is somewhere between 10,000. And as soon as I hit enter, you can see my grid has been updated. Or I can be more selective. I say, give me everything between 3,000 and 5,000. And as you can see, it will simply update that as well. Now, of course, I can remove this out, or if I don't want this operator, I can simply hit reset. So it's a very nice operator that has a built-in set of editors that we pop up directly in the user interface for you. Now, we've also done some upgrades to create a new customizable header filter. And it's very nice because you can get very granular with it. So now, with the customized header filter, you're able to create, for example, with employee, we've got this header filter that just looks at the values, individual values, and you can sort by them. But let's say you've got something like order date, and you say, well, I want to create my own version of order date. So here, I have created a value that says, listen, I want to get all the values for 2014, and I want to be able to show it in a tree view style. Or I want to have a value called weekends where I calculate particularly what those date values can be. And so, as you can see, you can create a very customizable approach to this. Or you can make something like this that says, hey, listen, I want to create a set of ranges for my invoice number or even my sales amount that has things like less than and greater than. And you'll see here, you can create that by just creating your own custom data source. So for your header filter, I've created a custom data source here that has defined what the text is and how that translates into the value against the field. So it's a very powerful way to really create customizable header filters for your grid. Now, and you can also create these ranges, so you can do filtering by ranges as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the performance optimizations. I'll dive into the overall optimizations a little bit later as well, but just for the grid alone, I want to mention that some of the things that we've done is that it now renders and refreshes nearly twice as fast as previous releases. And we did this by improving things like data caching. So data caching prevents unnecessary requests to remote data storage. We've also optimized the use of lookup fields. With the new calculate display value column option, the grid loads only string values displayed by the lookup. And data grouping and summary calculations can now be performed on the server. So this reduces the amount of data transfer and improves overall performance when you work with large data sets. All right. So beyond that, we've also done some other items. For example, we have now two-way data binding support for Knockout and AngularJS frameworks. As you know, DevExtreme provides a framework, but if you want, you can use our powerful widgets like Pivot Grid, Scheduler, and Data Grid with other frameworks like Angular and Knockout. And so now we have support for two-way binding, so which forces a grid cell to be updated when a corresponding field value changes outside the grid. And we also given you the option to specify configuration for the editors and how they edit column values. You can also now show and hide the checkbox, and we've given a new method that you can use to check if changes were committed to the server. And finally, we've added the page navigator now displays the total row count. All right, now let's take a look at the scheduler. This control was also added a couple releases ago, and in this release we've added some really nice features. The first is we've added this capability to customize the appointment. So here I'm actually using one of the new views. We added new timeline views. So in this case I'm doing timeline day, but you can do timeline week or work week and so forth. And in this case you'll see that I've added a customization for appointments, not just for the display. So I've got a custom display here, but I've added a custom tooltip, and if I go and edit the form, I have a custom appointment edit form as well, where I've got some radio buttons for editing, I've got a drop down for my title, and I've got some different ways to display what is going on in there. Now, to take a look, you can see, for example, the default display for my appointment, I'm actually using just straight HTML, where I say, listen, just get me the movie ID and then display it using this custom markup. And that's what we're doing here. So we've got the title as well as some items there. And then I've got a custom appointment edit form that's doing quite a bit of things for looking up and giving us that drop down. And then, of course, we've got a custom tooltip that helps us display that little pop-up. So you can get very granular now when displaying the appointment form. Now, we've also added work because a lot of customers have been asking us, hey, you know, we've got a lot of users, some people can do certain things, some people don't have rights for other things. Well, we have now enabled it where your end users can define different appointment editing rights. So for example, if you don't want certain users to be able to edit, create, delete, then you can specify. You can even get granular by saying, hey, this person cannot drag or resize appointments. So that capability is now possible with the DevExtreme controls as well. All right. Next, I want to talk about is the appointment recurrence enhancements. As you know, with the appointment scheduler, you can create appointments that reoccur on a scheduled timeline. Well, in this release, you can now exclude an appointment from a recurring series, which is really handy. And it was kind of an annoyance in the past, but now you'll be prompted when you edit the active appointment or the entire series. So it makes it much nicer to get granular with how you create your, let's say, recurring appointments. Now, we've also enabled the capability to hide the all-day events. Now, if you've seen our default layout for the scheduler, you'll know there's always this all-day appointment item here, and that's fine, which is great. If you want to change something into an all-day appointment, I can simply drag it up there and say, hey, it spans multiple days or something like that. But let's say you don't have the need for this. Well, unfortunately, we didn't have a good way to hide it, and in this release, I'm happy to say it's as simple as setting the Show All Day panel to false, and you can easily hide that as well. Now, besides the custom appointment tooltips that we just saw here, we've also added a few UI events, and now you can allow you as a developer can now override the appointment click, appointment double click, and cell click events, and handle those in case you want to, let's say, track something, put in a pop-up, do something before the default event happens, or even override maybe the default behavior as well. All right, so that capability has been added. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the mobile improvements for the scheduler. Because the scheduler is a large control, we generally recommend that you use it for the desktop or a large mobile tablet. In this release, we've done some really nice work for how the scheduler widget is optimized on a mobile device. So first and foremost, you can now switch using a drop-down menu. So when you're on, let's say, the iPad, you can actually switch the view using a drop-down, and you can see it's touch-enabled as well. And then if a view is not wide enough to scroll horizontally, then the view now will be able to scroll. So as you just start scrolling, if this items are still item over to the left, you just use your finger, start scrolling, the view will be scrolled horizontally. And finally, we've got a pop-up, appointment edit details can now be displayed in full screen mode, which makes very much sense because you may have a very complicated edit form that you want to display, and you want to give the end user that full experience to use your beautiful edit. All right, big enhancements for the scheduler. Now, for the preview, we've done some work to improve the usability for using it with filtering options. So let's say you've got a preview and you want to be able to find, and you've got a ton of nodes in here, and I want to say, let's say I want to find everything that has the word super in it. I can just start typing super, and as soon as I do that, this filtering widget will automatically start filtering. So if I find something like video, you'll see that it does filtering there as well. So very nice option that has enabled, and of course you get this cancel box as well. All right, now I want to talk about the majority of the work that we've done in this release. And you know, each release we always take a look at where DevExtreme is, what it provides, and where we stand against, you know, some of the other options out there. We know there's a lot of great options out there. And so we have done a lot of work in this release to, you know, fix our technical debt, but beyond that, really hammer on performance. And we've done a lot of work to vastly improve performance across the board. So we've improved it for our UI widgets, which include our editors and so forth, our data grid, our pivot grid, but we've also improved our framework as well as visualization widgets. So for example, just the UI widgets like our text box and menu have gotten huge improvements. For example, the menu, as you can see, has gotten a huge improvement over 15.1. And then even the text box has seen major improvements, and these are of course in milliseconds, but of course in the world of web, milliseconds really matter. All right, and across for our framework, you'll see for different events like loading or rendering a view, we've also gotten big improvements. For rendering a view display has huge improvements, almost 3 times, and then even loading has some big improvements as well. And we've done a lot of work with charts. In fact, let me use a slightly different view to show this, and you can actually take a look at this same improvements as well. If you go to devexpress.com/new, you'll always find our what's new set of items for the latest release, and in here you can see the similar charts. So for example, in this bar chart, we can see for the different browsers, for example, for Chrome and Edge, the menu rendering time has gotten a huge improvement. So just by upgrading to 15.2, your experience for your end users is going to be vastly improved. And we feel with these improvements to our widgets as well as to our framework that DevExtreme is now as good or better than a lot of those frameworks out there. Or even if you're using something like Angular, you're going to get those enhancements already because we've improved our widgets as well. So now, I also want to mention a lot of work that we did for the data visualization stuff. So our charts are now 3 times faster. For example, line chart, a line chart with markers. For something with 50,000 points, you can see it's 3 times faster just from the previous release. And all you need to do is download the latest version. Now, you can take a look and try these today. Grab the trial, grab the update. Now, one last thing I want to mention is the demo updates. In this release, this is a feature we did for our developer and for our developer customers, meaning that when you are actually using DevExtreme, we wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to grok, understand how something is used. So, for example, let's say you are using this number box here. And you wanted to figure out, well, how do I bind this, not just in jQuery, but Knockout? Well, in the demos widget gallery, we have added these tabs for jQuery, Knockout, and AngularJS approaches, so you can see how it is done with each of those approaches. And this is available for all of the different items in the gallery. Now, of course, these are also available to you locally, but you can take a look at them online. So another thing we've done is we've improved the mobile experience as well. So those widgets, like our editors and so forth, that are enabled for mobile, we have added a new tab called Mobile Themes. Now this, when you run this, will take the same exact demo that you're taking a look at here and put it in this emulator, and it will give you a preview of how this will be displayed. So for example, we've got a spin control here, and you can take a look at how it will be displayed on an Android, and you can see it's got that beautiful DevExtreme native theme appearance as well. So this is now capable to use as well. Now, one last thing I want to mention is we've got a new demo that you should check out, and we're talking about making a separate webinar for Together to show you how it was built, and it is the Golf Club demo. Now, to be honest with you, Golf Club, we actually created this demo, and you can find this by going to js.devexpress.com, clicking on this hamburger menu and selecting demos, and this was actually released in 15.1.8, but in 15.2 we have done a lot of nice upgrades. Now this demo was designed to show you things like our scheduler widget, date box, pop-up, and select box, but it's built using AngularJS and ASP.NET Web API with OData. And like I said, we will actually delve more into this if you guys are interested in to see exactly what we've done. But what I want to show you specifically is how beautiful it is. So if you, for example, let's just take a look. On initial load, it's super fast. When I bring this drop down and I say, hey, I want to go golfing in Las Vegas, well, you know, vacation's coming up, so let me go from the 14th and I'll go all the way to the 21st. That's a good week. And I'll go, me and my wife, and we'll do look for some search courses. And you can see, as soon as I did that, the views change very quickly. The images are loaded fast. I've got the scheduler here with grouped appointments. I can open up an appointment or take a look and see, oh, well, those days are booked, or I might want to book a day here, or I might want to book a different one altogether. But you can see it's a very nice UI, and it's got some pop-ups and all sorts of good stuff built right into it. So I welcome you to play with it, but most importantly, again, take a look at the latest release. Now, Don, you know, I've just touched on some of the major things, but we've still got some really other great items to show. What else do you have in store for us?
Well, I'm going to talk about a new way of creating forms. Well, you have been showing it slightly. I'm going to talk about the data visualization and the improvements that we've done. And I'm going to talk about the new Visual Studio 2015 integration. And one other thing I'm going to show is some cloud integration with the parse.com platform, but that's for last. So I'm going to kick off first with a brand new widget which will save you tons of work, which is the form widget. And probably, like most of you, I find creating forms a really dull and boring task, because you have to do some HTML, you have to do some CSS, and you have to do some positioning. And when it's all looking good on one device, you have to check if it's looking good on another device with a different screen dimension. So with the form widget, there is basically no need for all this hassle, and it allows you to create forms which are basically populated with properties of the data object where we are binding this form to. And that will save you quite an amount of work. So I'll have this first demo showed, and let me mark it just a little bit, because we are talking about this particular area. This is the form widget, and what the other controls are basically to influence the appearance of the form, so that's not part of the form widget. For instance, if I select another company, then you'll see that we get some other data. Well, this is obviously possible with standalone editors as well. But what about this? For instance, I want to have the labels not on top, but I want to have them on the left. So that's just one property change, and the form is being repositioned altogether. Maybe I want to have like one column instead of two. So, and this is all done client side. As soon as I change it, this form will be updated. And what is even cooler, well, I could also say I want to have 3 columns, for instance, and I can maybe I want to have the labels on top in that particular case. But what is also pretty cool is I can set it on auto. And in this case, if I specify a minimum column width, for instance, of 200, the form widget will actually determine what's appropriate, and it will fit it inside. And in this case, we have this 2-column setup. But if I switch over to the mobile theme, then you'll see that we have only 1 column because the screen size is not allowing 2 columns in this particular case. So that's really cool. So let me show you how you can set up a form. And this is like the most simple form that you can imagine. So for that, I'll switch over to the knockout bindings, or the knockout code basically, because it separates the HTML from the logic behind it. So with the knockout, it will return a view model, and that view model has a configuration object form options. And in this case, we are binding a property form data to a specific form data element. And in this case, it is any of these companies. So in this case, what you see here is that all the fields are nicely formatted here. And I can even go a step further, because if I add something to this particular item, for instance, birthday, doesn't make too much sense for a company, but it's just to get an idea. If I hit apply, then you'll see that the birthday box is added, and it is actually a date selector because the type of this one is a date. And what I like really a lot is if I now scroll to another company who doesn't have that field, it's gone again. So this is like a really cool and powerful feature of this control. Well, obviously, there might be the case that you want to customize the order of elements, or maybe you have like specific things that you want to apply on this layout. So for that, we have a second demo which shows how to do that. And in this case, you can see that we are able to disable elements, or we can put validation on elements as well. And well, the way that is done is if we go back to the knockout view, but it'll apply for the jQuery and the Angular approach as well. You'll see that the form options have a collection with items, and these items determine specific things. So for instance, we have this nodes field. This is the property basically which is bound to this form element. It's got a call span of 2. And if you scroll up again, you'll see that the nodes has a call span of 2. If you check out the higher date, you'll see that in this case there is a validation rules object set on it. So with this configuration, you can set up all kinds of customized behavior on your forms, and you don't need to think about HTML and stuff, because if I go to the markup, then you'll see that this is the only thing needed to render out that form, and that saves you a ton of time, I'd say. And that's not only it, we've taken it a step further, because it also allows you to create grouped items, and that can be displayed in 2 ways basically. We'll have like groups, what you see here, but we're also able to display it in a tabbed interface. So you can create tabbed groups as well. And the way that works is basically again by populating this items configuration object, where we will specify for a certain item that it is an item type group, and we specify all items inside it. So it's basically a tree of definitions basically, which will render out that form. And the cool thing again is if I check it out on a mobile device, you'll see that it is positioned nice And even when I scroll down a bit, you'll see that the tabs are looking good as well, even with the little effects in it. And we can check it out on Android, where it will look slightly different. And we can even check it out on a Windows device. So yeah, this is already one of my favorite controls because, yeah, as said, I just don't like creating forms, but this makes it really easy for us.
And it's really nice that it's responsive, auto-generates the layout. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. So it will look good on any device. So yeah, a great addition to the toolbox. Another thing I'm going to talk about is data visualization. Well, Mehul already showed that we have been doing quite some improvements on the performance, and we have done a serious amount of work on that. But we were even able to add a number of features to a couple of charting controls as well. So for that, I'd like to start with the pie chart. The pie chart is now with 15.2, it is supporting multiple series. And the way that it looks is that you will have two rings. And let me just refresh this page, and I'll do this just because of the animations which I like on this pie chart. But anyway, you'll see two rings, and the outer ring is the first series, and the inner ring is the second series, and that is a new feature. And besides that, we have also been creating some extra work because you are already able to code on some events. For instance, if you hover over a slice of the pie, or you click on it, or you do something on this pie, you are already able to code those events. But in some situations, the pie or the slice is getting really small if you have like really a tiny amount of information for that particular area. So what we have done is you can now do that on by hovering or clicking or double clicking on the labels as well. So that is just a nice addition to improve the user experience in case you have like a really small slice which you cannot touch or point with your mouse. So it's just a small thing which will give your end user, yeah, some nice benefits. The other control I'd like to show is the vector map. And the vector map is obviously a map which can draw a vector. And what we have done here is we have added support for multiple layers and multiple layer markers as well. And what you'll see here is we have a floor plan. It's just a slide example. And this floor plan is drawn on one layer, but when I move over, you'll see that we get the floor data, in this case the square feet amount, and this is actually being drawn on a separate layer. And well, that gives some advantages if you want to go beyond the standard vector map things. And the way that you can configure it is fairly simple. You can just configure this layers array with layers where you define the data, etc., and it will just stack it up like that. So it's yeah, really nice and powerful thing to have. Another thing that we have been adding to the vector map is the support for projections. And you might think, what is that? Well, in this case, we have again a multi-layer vector map, and on the background layer we have the world projected, and on the second layer we have the meridians and the parallels drawn, which is a separate layer. But yeah, if you look at this map, it looks a bit like before Columbus starting to sail the world. What we can do with a specific projection type is we can make this globe look like after Columbus was done sailing, and that is done in this case with a Wagner 6 projection. So if I just enable this code, and I'll show the map. Then this map just looks way better. And well, this is calculated, so this is not like fumbled around, but this is used with the Wagner 6 projection type. And if you want to know everything about this projection type, you can look it up on Google and find Wikipedia articles about it. We also included a number of other projection types out of the box as well. So to give you an example, we have the Mercator projection type, and we have, for instance, the Miller cylindrical projection. And if you're really into this kind of material, then these projection types might not solve your issues. So for that, you can also implement your own projection types, and we'll have documentation on how to create those projection types. But yeah, for specialists on that area, this is also a nice feature.
That is really slick with the, I like how the vector map right there, you added a calculation, just updates.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like this Wagner 6, I mean, honestly, we chose it. We went to Wikipedia and it says that formula looks like the simplest one to implement, so that we just kind of show like it's possible, right? It's just a demo. But, I mean, you can get really complicated.
Oh yeah, and now it shows that the world is actually around. So in this case, it's like a really cool match on this particular map. So yeah, the next thing I'd like to discuss is the Visual Studio 2015 integration. We've done a couple of nice things in there as well, and one of the things that Visual Studio 2015 has is a really nice Apache Cordova application template. And this application template facilitates things like npm, Bower package management. It supports building and packaging tasks like grunt, gulp, and it has the new folder structure similar to ASP.NET vNext. So it has a couple of advantages, especially if you're doing client-side development like DevExtreme basically. So what we have done, we have added a project template which is based on this Microsoft Cordova template, but it also has all the sweetness that DevExtreme offers. And let me show you in Visual Studio quickly how that works. I will just create this project. I'll not go mad on the code, but in this case, if I do File New and I go to the DevExtreme section, I'll have a DevExtreme Cordova application. And if I create it, you'll notice that there are a couple of things which are different from the previous project, and that is the folder structure. And one of the things that you see here is the dependencies. And that is basically something which comes with Bower and npm, so you are now able to fetch, just like you have with ASP.NET and C#, you've got like NuGet packages. You can now use Bower and npm to get JavaScript client libraries installed. And if I open this one up, you'll actually see that a couple of things needs to be resolved. But we'll do that. I can just click it and say restore packages, just like NuGet. And what you also see, you see that like the grunt file with the configuration for the grunt tasks. You've got the build JSON file, you've got the Bower JSON. So this is all the new stuff which is pretty popular these days, especially on front-end developers. The thing that we are primarily obviously interested in is the www folder, because that will hold your application, and this will basically hold your static assets. So in case of an ASP.NET application, all your C# files would not be in here, but we are doing a client-side application, so it will all be in here. But the cool thing is that I still have my DevExtreme views. And we also get the designer, as you can see, and we have the GS as well. And if I want to add a view, it is possible to just add a new DevExpress item, And in that case, I can add another view, which will render out this DXView file as well as the JavaScript. So we have basically added all our nice stuff of DevExtreme into this Cordova application template. And well, this template offers a bit of a more future-proof approach because of the package management being installed. What you see here, for instance, if I open up the Bower section, you'll see that we'll get DevExtreme from the Bower repository. Same goes for Knockout. And the cool thing is that once we release a new version, which will have another version number, it is much easier to get updates and get your application upgraded with the latest version. And the same goes for packages from Microsoft and other parties who are also delivering their JavaScript libraries through Bower. So that's a really nice way of keeping your applications up to date. Also, with this type of solution, we'll be able to build and submit applications for iOS 9 out of the box, because that is all also going via Bower and NPM and stuff, and the whole build process is on those repositories. So that's a really well added feature with this project template. And because of the Apache Cordova template, you're also able to create and package Windows 10 applications with DevExtreme and Visual Studio 2015. And for this, we have also created something that I'd like to show you on the slide. We have a beautiful, nice Windows 10 theme for this purpose. So if you are now building an application and you want to run it on a Windows 10 phone, or you want to run it on a Windows 10 tablet or desktop, we'll be able to provide this really nice interface, because we have themed all of our widgets into this nice Windows 10 theme. So another thing which is really nice and really well done.
And that's along with our other themes for iOS and Android. With, you know, when Android released their new M design, L design, I don't know what they called it. Looks really nice. I just don't know what they call it. But yeah, so since now Windows 10 Mobile is out, well, not officially out, but they have a theme at least. We are supporting it as well with DevExtreme. Yeah,
exactly. So you might wonder, like, okay, but I'm always used to using that other DevExtreme project template, or I'm still using Visual Studio 2013, so what now? Well, we are still obviously maintaining and supporting this default DevExtreme template, but we have even added a nice feature to that one as well, because you can now actually configure the Cordova plugins to be retrieved from NPM. And also that saves you some time when upgrading some open source libraries or stuff that is hosted on NPM or Bower. So the way that works, I'm quickly going to create a project with the regular project template. And you'll see that you will have like the good old file structure back, like you used to. What you can do now, if you want to get something if you want to get a package from NPM, the only thing you basically need to do is specify it in the config.xml file, which is the configuration file for your app. And what you see is that we are actually using NPM for a couple of standard things that we are shipping in the DevExtreme application, which is the status bar plugin. And what you'll see is we are getting it from NPM because the source is specified as NPM. And the same comes with a plugin which will support the new gesture that there is on the new iOS, which is in this case, they call it a long press fix. I'm not sure what the official name is.
I think they call it force touch.
Oh yeah, that was it. You're right. I'm sorry, I'm not really an Apple user, but no problem. The source is also specified as NPM. So this is just with the regular template, and we are now able to get those plugins from NPM as well, which is also a really nice feature. The last thing I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it slightly, not too deep, because it's like a really exciting thing, but it will take quite a bit of time to tell you everything about it. It is our integration with the Parse cloud platform. And yeah, for all of you who don't know what it is, the Parse platform is basically a scalable cloud database together with notifications and analytics. That's pretty interesting, basically, because you can also analyze what's being done on your applications. And this platform is being developed by the Facebook team. And what we are supporting right now is the use of this scalable cloud database backend. So instead of using a web API or OData or Azure mobile services, we have also support now for this particular Parse cloud platform. And that means that your application can get its data out of this platform. And yeah, it's starting to get really popular, and the way that it basically works is that we have, well, Parse itself has a great deal of documentation. So if you go to the documentation, you'll see a bunch of popular client environments which are supported, and we are obviously interested in the JavaScript one. What we have done is we have created a data store for this, and it's not installed automatically when you install DevExtreme, but we have hosted it, including source and everything, on GitHub. So if you go to GitHub/DevExpress, you'll see that one of our repositories is the DevExtreme data parse, and that actually has some pretty good documentation on how to get started. So you'll basically need to include a number of things which are specific for this Parse platform. You'll get an application ID and a JavaScript key from Parse once you sign up, and then you can start coding. And this is basically what we have created for you, which will make it super easy to get and to post data into that database backend. But if you are interested and you want to know more about it, please let us know, because we are talking about doing a webinar on this particular subject as well. But I like this one very much myself, so it's yeah, really cool stuff. And with that, Mehul, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I just want to wrap up and say again, the performance enhancements across the board for the widgets, for the framework, are well worth checking out. Beyond that, as you can see, Don showed you the integrations with Visual Studio, and that isn't meant to say like, Visual Studio is a great IDE, and DevExtreme, it doesn't rely on Visual Studio. However, if you use Visual Studio, there's some enhancements there. So if you like that Cordova application template, you're still getting the full DevExtreme framework, if you'd like, in there as well with the Cordova template, but you just get the benefits of those packages and so forth. So again, a lot of work to make your life as a developer easier. Give it a try. Download it. There's our email addresses, Harry@DevExpress or Don@DevExpress, and we're on Twitter as well. If you built something, if you have any feedback, we would love to hear it. Thank you very much for joining. Amanda?
Great. Thank you both. All right, everybody, check out all of our previous launch week webinars at devexpress.com/webinars. And as I mentioned before, today's webinar is being recorded and it will be available later on our DevExpress YouTube channel. I will post the link in the chat box. And while you're there, please check out all of our 15.2 tutorials that are currently being posted and will continue to be posted through this week and next week. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Mehul and Don. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.